The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Friday, September 26th, Jesse. And today is a National Gay Men's HIV Awareness Day.
I'm pretty sure they're all aware.
Well, they may not be aware. That's why they say to get tested.
If you're gay and you're not aware of HIV, something is seriously wrong with you.
I don't think that's what that necessarily means, but I see what you did there, Jesse. I do see what you did there. Interesting. It's also National Brave Day.
Like,
this is not for the Atlanta Braves, Jesse, okay? This is not for the Atlanta Braves.
Well, that's why I said, like, the movie.
Oh, you talking about Major League?
No, isn't there a movie called Brave?
I don't think so.
Okay, now I gotta go use my Google.
There's a movie. There's a movie called Braveheart.
Well, I know that.
If that's what you're talking about.
There is a movie called Brave, dude. It's a Pixar movie. It's with the redheaded chick.
Oh, that's why you know about it, is because it's got a redhead involved.
Of course, bro.
I've never heard.
Keeping up with my gingers. My mind was blanking.
I've never heard of this at all.
It's a great movie.
I'm sure it's fantastic, Jesse. It's a Pixar movie.
Elias is texting me. It's by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's National Compliance Officer Day today.
Oh, where's our Jenny Beth?
That's a great question, Jesse.
That is a great question.
Great question. You have lots of great questions today, apparently.
We have a lot of compliance officers that are missing on this show.
Yeah.
For Compliance Officer Day.
Mm-hmm. It's also
shout out to the compliance officers. They are much needed.
Well, here, Jesse. This resonates for you today because I can see that you're definitely participating in this because it's National Situational Awareness Day.
I'm good at that. I'm good at situational awareness. And you know what? It's my biggest pet peeve that most people aren't.
Most people are blind to the truth.
They just are not situationally aware. You know, a good example is like at grocery store lines. Like you notice a lot of people will dilly-dally and like be messing with their wallet or their phone while they're in line, like, and the teller's like waiting for them to pay. Why aren't you ready? You got 10 people behind you. You should be situationally aware that everybody's got lives.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the thing, Jesse.
Get it done.
They waited in line like everybody else to be able to have that time to do that, while everyone else did that too. So they're just passing it. They're just playing it forward, Jesse.
Yeah, that's bad situational awareness.
They're just playing it forward, bro.
You're reinforcing terrible situational awareness.
They're just playing it forward, bro. I don't understand why you're such a naysayer.
I'm a hater.
It's also National.
Comes to that,
what's that, Jesse?
No, you go ahead.
All right, it's also National Dumpling Day.
Ooh, everybody likes a good dumpling.
National Pancake Day.
Who doesn't like pancakes? Although I'm not eating them because I'm on the keto diet right now.
Yeah, I can't eat pancakes. I wish I could. They're fluffy. They're light. They're, you know what I mean? Full of carbs. But it's also National Johnny Appleseed Day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is that myth all about? Because there wasn't a real Johnny Appleseed, was there?
Well, I think Dr. Mark should take this one.
Dr. Mark? Who knows?
I think you're on mute, Dr. Mark.
Yep, definitely.
Yep. We can't hear you.
Oh, well.
I don't know.
Oh, he had to disconnect and reconnect.
Disconnect and reconnect. All right, he'll be right back.
Yeah, he'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Well, it is also, Jesse, since it's a, National Pancake Day, it will only be fitting that it is also, hope you're ready for this, it's also National Shamu the Whale Day.
Shamu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't that what the whole Blackfish movie was about?
There was a movie about Shamu the whale, and then they were attacking SeaWorld for housing whales and making them perform and everything. And can we hear you now? Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. Yes.
I don't know what was wrong there.
Us. Hey, it's all good. Sometimes you gotta, you gotta pull out and get back in there.
So I did look it up here. Sorry to override your pull-out joke.
It's all right. It's all right, Jesse.
Johnny Appleseed, whose real name was John Chapman, was a real American pioneer nurseryman known for spreading apple trees across large areas of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Ontario, Canada. I did that just for you, Jason.
Look at that. Told you he was a real guy.
There you go.
He was a real boy.
We need a Johnny Cannaseed, and I totally agree with John Lawler in the comments.
Johnny Cannaseed, that'd be cute. That'd be cute. Well,
all across America.
Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. We are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And kicking it off this morning, I have an interesting study for you guys. Because Dr. Mark, some of these guys, they got some money, bro. They got some money. Because OHSU, they were awarded $6.7 million to study effects of cannabis use during pregnancy in people with HIV. The study will explore the impact of THC use on maternal, placental, fetal health in context of HIV infection, you guys. A team of researchers led by Oregon's Health and Science University has received more than $6.7 million from the National Institutes of Health to investigate how cannabis use during pregnancy may affect pregnancy outcomes for pregnant people. It'd be pregnant women with HIV. This is obviously written by some woke guy. The 5-year grant from the NIH's National Institute on Drug Abuse will support research led by Jamie Lowe, MD, MCR, Associate Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Maternal Fetal Medicine in the OHSU School of Medicine and the Division of Reproductive and Developmental Sciences at the Oregon National Primate Research Center, and Benjamin Berwitz, PhD, Associate Professor in the Division of Pathobiology and Immunology at ONPRC. The project includes co-lead principal investigator Jennifer Manzarek. She's a PhD of the Tulane National Primate Research Center, and other OHSU co-investigators, Matthias Schabel, PhD, and James Frank, PhD. The study will use a non-human primate model to examine how daily parental exposure to THC, the psychoactive compound in cannabis, affects immune function, viral control, placental development, and fetal outcomes in the setting of HIV-like infection and artrivenial therapy. The research combines the expertise of the Low Lab, which studies effects of substance use on reproductive health, pregnancy, and offspring outcomes, with that of the Berwitz Lab, which studies infectious disease immunology with a focus on non-human primate models. In a quote, "This project really brings together Ben's infectious diseases expertise and my work on cannabis and pregnancy," Lowe said. "A lot of people with HIV use cannabis for different reasons, for their symptoms and side effects of treatment, but there's been almost no research on how HIV and cannabis combined can impact maternal, placental, and fetal outcomes in pregnancy." A growing concern, though, because according to the World Health Organization, there were 1.2 million pregnant individuals with HIV in 2023, and people with HIV face higher risks during pregnancy, like premature birth and placental problems, even when they take effective medications such as antiretroviral therapy, and these risks are linked to ongoing inflammation in the body, which can also affect how babies grow. At the same time, cannabis use is increasing among pregnant individuals, including those with HIV. While cannabis is often seen as safe because it is widely available and safety data is limited, it's been independently linked to pregnancy problems. In a quote, they say, "HIV infection drives systemic inflammation, even when the virus is well controlled with medication," Berwitz said. "THC, the active part of cannabis, has some anti-inflammatory effects in certain settings. However, our group's prior research has shown that THC can be harmful during pregnancy. So the big question is, does cannabis make the effects of HIV worse for the baby, or could its selective anti-inflammatory properties help? We don't know yet." But there's an innovative model and comprehensive research, because using a rhesus monkey model, RHESUS MAC.
Rhesus monkey.
Rhesus.
Got it. Rhesus. Oh, that's not how they spell it in
Monkey.
the candy. That's not how they spell it.
It is a primate institute. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. A rhesus monkey model, the OHSU team will study pregnant non-human primates that are infected with, it should be HIV. I'm not sure why it says CIV, but maybe it says CIV, a virus in non-human primates similar to HIV, my bad, treated with antiviral therapy and given a THC daily edible. They will track how this affects the mother's immune system, the placenta's ability to function and develop, and how the babies grow and develop. Advanced imaging and serial assessments throughout pregnancy will give researchers a detailed picture of what's happening inside the mother's body, including placenta and the fetus. But there's something that isn't possible to do safely in pregnant individuals, because in a quote they say, "The placenta and fetus develop in similar ways in non-human primates and humans," Lowe said. "Also, the cannabinoid receptors, where THC binds to, of humans and non-human primates, share the same structure. That makes this the best model for studying cannabis during pregnancy." And the team will also build a sample bank to help other scientists explore related questions in the future. And in a quote, they say, "This is the first time anyone has looked this deeply at how cannabis, HIV, and pregnancy interact," Berwitz said. "Our goal is to help clinicians make better decisions and give clearer advice to pregnant individuals with HIV who may be using cannabis." The research is supported by the National Institute of Drug Abuse of the National Institutes of Health under award number 1R01DA064125, and the context is solely the responsibility of the authors and does not necessarily represent the official views of the NIH. Researchers discover new, oh man, you guys. I wonder if Fauci had a play in this, because I don't understand why they're doing this on animals, and they're not even using real HIV, they're using SIV. I can't wait to hear what you doctors have to say about this. This sounds like a fraudulent study to me already, you guys, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm curious if they've already studied, I haven't seen any results of studying in these primates the effect of cannabis use in pregnancy without HIV, with healthy primates. I'd like to know. I mean, maybe they've already gathered some data on it and have some conclusions, and so they're taking the next step with HIV. But I didn't hear any mention
I didn't get that
that.
impression. I didn't get that impression from this article, Dr. T, because they said that there had been a lack of study on pregnancy and HIV, and that's why they were doing this study. So I don't believe that they did this before. And to me, this just sounds like testing on animals, and it's like they're not even testing animals with HIV. It's a totally different drug. So it's very possible that it could produce a totally different result than what they're going to try to say would happen with cannabis and HIV.
Well, no, human immunodeficiency virus and simian immunodeficiency virus, they're very similar viruses. One affects primates and one affects humans. And so they're using the one that affects the primates since that's what they're studying on. It's the appropriate way to do it. It's a lot of money to be putting toward a subset of the population. I'm curious. I'm wondering if they've already done it on primates without HIV, and I wonder what the results were. I'm guessing they were positive, that there weren't any negative outcomes, but I'd like to look into that first. As we know, NIDA's not interested in spreading any positive news about cannabis.
Yeah.
So they're hunting for negative news there.
Yeah, interesting. Any thoughts on this, Dr. Mark?
Well, I think Dr. T hit the nail on the head when he said money, because I think what this is that the drugs that are used today to control HIV are these antiviral drugs, which basically interfere with the viral replication of their they interfere with the viral DNA replication. I think that's right, Dr. T, right? These things, like all the medicines that are used today, most in antiviral therapy, have non-target side effects. And I think like those have been studied in chimps because that's the closest relative to us, right? If you look at the chimp genome and you look at our genome, they're very,
but when
similar.
they do animal studies, they generally start with mice or rats.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not making my point. So the point is, I think these have already been studied in monkey models or primate models, if you will, by the pharmaceutical companies who have the deep pockets, looking at antiviral drugs. And now the question is, well, a lot of these patients are also consuming cannabis while they're taking these antiviral drugs. Are there interactions, right? Dr. T, is that
Yeah,
the point?
that's basically it, and the primate model is way more expensive than the rat model. Somebody with the primate lab's getting some nice funding here.
So you guys don't think that they're just monkeying around, huh?
Yeah, that's a lot of monkey business going on.
No time.
Interesting.
They're really going ape for it.
I see.
This is what happens. It's spiraling downhill from here on out.
Hey, it happens. Any thoughts or any antics, Jesse?
No, I disagree. I agree. This sounds like a kind of ridiculous study on a very small subset of people that's not really relevant to much of anything. I read the article with you and I don't really understand the point.
Well, Jesse, today is National Gay Men's HIV Awareness Day, Jesse.
Pregnant gay men?
No. But it was funny because that article did say pregnant people, which we all know that men can't get pregnant. That's totally ridiculous.
I think that's what they were trying to infer.
I know that's what they were, because that's like some woke language. They need to just say pregnant women, because it's disrespectful to women to say that men can get pregnant.
Yeah, what they
To
said.
the
There's
story,
a million, and they said there's 1 million pregnant women with.
I think that's a global number, Jesse, not a U.S. number. That's a global number. Yes, a global number. I think is what they refer to.
This is a tiny number. 1 million out of 9 billion people is a very small number.
Well, they're the 1%.
It's a weird study to be like, oh, we got a ton of money to do this for 5 years.
Somebody's connected.
Someone's connected, right?
Somebody's connected, exactly.
Someone's connected. Yep, fair enough.
They're very interested in HIV.
It's the time. On that, we're going to go into our first commercial, and we're going to be right back. You guys, yes. Well,
we are back.
I have another research study for you guys today. I think you guys will enjoy this. And I will say, Dr. Mark, I'm a little disappointed because you're the one that's supposed to be behind this, but someone else beat you to the punch. Because research discover a new cannabinoid, Cannabizetol. Because they had to put a Z in it for all the cannabis people, I guess, with remarkable antioxidant and skin anti-inflammatory activity. That's right. A research team at the Università degli Studi di Milano has reported in a new study the discovery of a previously known cannabinoid, Cannabizetol, better known as CBGD. That's disappointing they didn't get a Z in there, which exhibits remarkable antioxidant and skin anti-inflammatory activity, they say. The compound was identified and isolated from cannabis sativa extracts and represents only the third known member of the rare methylene-bridged dimetric cannabinoid class. Its existence was confirmed using a chemically synthesized standard which matched its natural isolate exactly, and the study found that cannabizetol demonstrates remarkably strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects in human skin cells, significantly outperforming the previously known dimetric cannabinoid cannabinoid. In experiments with keratinocytes, cannabizetol showed concentration-dependent inhibition of inflammatory markers such as NF-kB, activation in IL-8 release, and researching complete inhibition at relatively low doses. Researchers also reported that cannabizetol suppressed a broad range of pro-inflammatory genes linked to skin conditions, suggesting potential dermatological applications. To expand availability for further study, researchers developed optimized synthetic pathways, including conscious flow chemistry, which allowed them to cut reaction time substantially compared to traditional batch methods. While yields remain modest, the process provides a reliable source of the compound for ongoing research. And the team notes that the discovery of cannabizetol underscores how much the cannabinome remains uncharted. With over 150 cannabinoids identified so far, many minor or rare compounds are still poorly characterized due to low concentrations in plant material and difficulties in isolation. This work not only adds a new cannabinoid to the scientific record, but also highlights the potential for novel therapeutic applications hidden within lesser-known cannabis metabolites. At under 0.1% of plant content, cannabizetol is scarce in natural cannabis material, but its promising anti-inflammatory activity may open new directions in skin health treatments and cannabinoid-based therapeutics. Well, I can just see the marketing for some new lotion company coming out calling cannabizetol with a Z in there. Now Now with Cannabizetol, our special formulation. So lotion up and be well and rejuvenate your cell. Y'all gotta say about this.
Sounds like I need some.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll put this in toilet paper too, Jesse.
Well, given the fact
cool,
that it's
right?
anti-inflammatory for skin, that sounds like a great idea.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here,
This is
I'll use my hand. I use my hands to describe the molecule, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
this is the
I
molecule
saw it.
of
It looked
CBG.
it looked like a hieroglyphic, Dr. Mark. It looked like it was like a person holding up the weight of the world on both sides of it.
Okay. So here's a molecule of CBG. Here's another molecule of CBG, and you link those together, and now you have a dimer of CBG. Right. That's basically what this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a methylene bridge dimer. So it's no surprise that, what this has the activity of, this also has the activity of, maybe even better, right? 'Cause
Mhm.
it's two molecules in one.
Exactly.
The dimer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes where this is a problem, like there's a certain size molecule that is preferred to cross the cell wall, and at some certain size, it no longer becomes something that can be actively transported across the cell wall. This is super big in molecular weight, right? It's twice the size of CBG. So maybe, if so, CBG's molecular weight is 316. So 316 times 2 is what?
1,600 times 2 is 3,200.
No, 316 times 2 is 632.
Okay.
So that's kind of beyond usually where most therapeutic molecules are in terms of like what their ideal molecular weight is. Yeah, this is super cool. I mean, it's basically a dimer of CBG that they found, I guess, in the plant.
Mm-hmm.
They also synthesized it to verify that that's what they found in the plant. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
Interesting. What are your thoughts, Dr. T?
I'm curious how they came up with that new standard. I guess if they had the standard of CBG, just combining two to create a dimer, of CBG is all they had to do to find the standard and check out if other products are like that, their plant product.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and Dr. T, it's not just like a dimer of two CBD molecules. There's a CH2 that's magically in the bridge in between the two. So to me, I mean, that CH2 doesn't arrive and it's interesting because if you look at where that's substituted on the ring, that's where the acid of CBGA used to be. So is there a biological mechanism by which two CBG acids couple, one loses a CO2 molecule and the other CO2 molecule becomes reduced with hydrogen to make the CH2 methylene bridge that's in between the two? I don't know. I mean, there are dimers in biology, but this sounds a little synthetic to me.
Well, I think this is very interesting news. Personally, I think it's great. But I'm not always sure, but we'll see. I thought it was good medical information, and I look forward to seeing some lotion at a CVS or Walgreens someday with a Z in there.
As a chemist, what it does is it inspires me to think, gee, is there a dimer of THC? Is there a dimer of CBD? I think with CBD dimer, there actually is one that's similar to what we're looking at here in this compound, a methylene bridge dimer of CBD that's known. And I would assume that probably the same thing is known for THC. How prevalent they are in the plant and how more likely it is that they're being synthesized are, different question.
Well, I'm just going to say, Dr. Mark, whatever you do, don't drop the dime on that one. Okay.
Dimer.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, on that, we're going to roll.
The timer for the dimer.
On that, we're going to roll right into Dr. Jean Talleyrand. He's the founder of the CESC and of Medican, where you can get your doctor's recommendation online all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it is none other than Dr. Jean Talleyrand. You're on mute, Dr. T. There we go.
Friday,
we got you now.
Everyone, just pulling up my article here. I hope you're all well. So here today, since autism's been in the news lately, I thought this story from Marijuana Herald might be pertinent.
Love it.
6 recent studies highlight CBD's potential role in reducing symptoms and protecting brain function by Anthony Martinelli. Over the past 12 months, 6 separate peer-reviewed studies have been published examining the impact of CBD cannabidiol on autism, with results consistently showing improvements in behavioral symptoms and markers of brain health. One of the most notable was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial at UC San Diego that tested pharmaceutical CBD, that's Epidiolex, in boys with severe autism. Researchers found that 2/3 of participants experienced noticeable improvements, including reductions in repetitive behaviors. Doses were up to 20 milligrams per kilogram body weight, which is like 10 times more than what's being sold out there. Another clinical study involving children with severe autism found that more than 80% improved in at least one core symptom, such as repetitive behaviors or social interaction. Parents also reported better quality of life, though the improvements varied and long-term safety data remains limited. A separate trial using CBD-rich cannabis extracts in children and adolescents found moderate improvements in social responsiveness and disruptive behaviors, with few differences in side effects compared to placebo. A mouse study published earlier this year found that CBD oil not only reduced behavioral abnormalities, but also lowered oxidative stress levels in key brain regions, while helping preserve healthy tissue structure. These results suggest CBD could counteract some of the cellular damage often linked with autism-like conditions. In a separate rat model, researchers tested a nano-emulsified form of CBD designed for better absorption. They reported that the treatment reversed autism-like behaviors, such as heightened anxiety and repetitive grooming, while also protecting the hippocampus by reducing neural death and preserving viable brain cells. The higher dose was especially effective, pointing to a possible dose-response relationship. Across these studies, improvements were seen in repetitive behaviors, anxiety, social interaction, and disruptive outbursts. Animal models point to CBD's ability to reduce oxidative stress and prevent neural damage, offering a potential mechanism for its benefits. Side effects in human trials were generally mild, with sleepiness and appetite changes the most common. Although the research is still in early stages, the growing body of evidence suggests CBD may play a valuable role in reducing one of the most challenging symptoms of autism. Larger and longer clinical trials will be necessary to confirm these effects, but momentum behind CBD research in this area continues to build. So to answer the question, does Tylenol use during pregnancy cause autism? Evidence in recent years has suggested a correlation between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and subsequent diagnosis of conditions like autism and ADHD. Multiple large-scale cohort studies, including the Nurses' Health Study 2 and the Boston Birth Cohort, find this association. Some studies have described that the risk may be most pronounced when acetaminophen is taken chronically throughout pregnancy. Acetaminophen is Tylenol. But let's remember the one rule when looking at studies: correlation is not causation. So the answer is no. We're finding correlation, but not causation. This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Interesting, Dr. T. This is great information. Now, but with can we go on to this Tylenol thing for a second? Before
I
we
knew
do,
you'd
before,
get to it.
yeah, I mean, you brought it up. You brought it up. So, I was actually talking with someone in regards of this, and they're a nurse, and they were kind of breaking it down for me. Why you're actually not supposed to take it is because during that time, your immune system is weaker, or the part of the body that the Tylenol reacts with is at a weaker state, and so then by adding Tylenol to it, it makes it even more weaker, and makes it harder for it to be able to rebuild itself, and that's why they're saying that it's not appropriate to be taking Tylenol.
This is giving me a headache having to listen to this. Okay, so get your notebooks out.
All right, here we
okay?
go. Here we go.
All right. So Tylenol, acetaminophen, right,
Yep.
is hydrolyzed into body para-aminophenol and gets coupled with something called arachidonic acid and becomes a cannabinoid-like molecule called AM404. Okay, Google it. AM404 cannabinoid. And what you'll see is that it's the primary metabolite of Tylenol that acts as a COX-2 inhibitor, which is like ubiquitous through the body. I mean, Dr. T, this is old hat. This has been known for years now. So, I mean, it's acting on the endocannabinoid system.
Mm-hmm.
So this information that you're giving from this person is just not correct. Acting on the endocannabinoid system, and it's acting on COX-2, which is part of the arachidonic acid cascade, which leads to release of pro-inflammatory molecules. Basically, the biosynthesis of things like leukotrienes and prostaglandins, which elicit a inflammatory response. So you're trying to decrease inflammation. The correlation here is just doesn't exist. And yeah.
Interesting.
Well, we don't give NSAIDs in pregnancy, particularly in the third trimester, because of that anti-inflammatory effect, potentially causing miscarriage. But we do give Tylenol, and so maybe some of this evidence is lumping NSAIDs with Tylenol and saying, hey, this potential anti-inflammatory effect of Tylenol may be also contributing to adverse effects. There's no molecular.
I just think that there's obvious correlations between all of these things in autism, right? So the exposure to carcinogens from the preservatives that are eat in prepared foods, the colors and the dyes and all that shit. I mean, ultimately, yeah, your body is challenged with all kinds of chemical insults all throughout our lives, and our body's ability to fight these off is basically the tone of like how healthy our immune system is. But these types of anti-inflammatories, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Dr. T, but this is like our body is constantly going through environmental insults where a lot of times the immune response in our body is pro-inflammatory, which is to increase inflammation. I think as like an allergic response, right? Or as a way of somehow keeping more allergens from coming into our body, right? So our bronchial tubes swell up, it becomes difficult to breathe, and all the other difficulties you have, and like anaphylactic shock. But going back to, is Tylenol used during pregnancy correlated to autism? I mean, just the more women you have that are eating Tylenol during pregnancy, and the more prevalence of autism shows both curves going up with time. That doesn't mean that this curve causes this curve. Right?
Exactly. Great point, Mark. And you're saying that there are all sorts of insults that we could be looking at.
Right.
That's why I was curious with the primate study. What have they done with simply looking at cannabis and in the primate study? And when I say cannabis, I mean a combination of THC and CBD in different ratios, not what they tend to do, which is take the isolate and put it out there. But, anecdotally, we've seen in the community that seems to benefit women in pregnancy. And so I'm wondering, can we see that in primates? This is an awesome opportunity to do that.
Well, doctors, we did get a super chat in from Troy Lawrence who says, CBG and micelle. This is old, docs. Nano on CBD. Let's get to CBG and micelle.
Yeah. I love the nano emulsion is something that's really a real thing. There's really something to that. I was super skeptical. I think I've said it before here on High at 9 about the whole, this nano thing makes it work better or increases bioavailability. It really does. And notice that they're treating brain disorders this way and seeing some type of efficacy, I think just this is really fucking cool. I love this research.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Nano is the way to go. What we're seeing is better bioavailability, more consistent bioavailability, as well as more efficient availability. More of it gets into the system.
You're lowering the effective dose by making what you're putting in work a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to agree with Dimitri Downing, who in the chat, he says all synthetic drugs are suspect. That's just me, though. You have any?
Well, think about that when you take an aspirin or ibuprofen, right?
I don't take any of those things. I don't take anything. I just deal with it, Dr. Mark. Feel the pain.
Well, one thing we've got to remember: women who are pregnant, especially third trimester, is the roughest. In terms of lugging around this large amount of weight and it hurting your low back. So there's pain that begins in the third trimester and continues out through delivery and postpartum, where pregnant women are looking for some relief there. And we haven't been able to find anything good. And now you can potentially throw Tylenol into that basket.
Oh man, you're gonna get people so fired up with that comment right there, Dr. T. So fired up.
Hey, all we're doing is reporting the evidence.
I know. I'm here for it, bro. I'm here for it. I'm here for the truth. Whatever the truth is, I'm here for it. Jesse, any final thoughts before we move on?
You can commit suicide with Tylenol. It can cause liver failure. So there's that. I don't know that the natural substance in your body that creates the same process that Dr. Mark was talking about would do the same. So that's one point to consider. I know that Tylenol itself has put out statements that they don't recommend pregnant women use their product, or if they do, they use it super sparingly. So there's a huge conversation around this. I don't personally actually have expertise on this. I can only repeat what I read and what I see. And from my perspective, having had 7 kids, both my current wife and my ex-wife are very anti any of those things and would not take those during pregnancy because of their own personal research into personal medicine, and they're super anti. So I can only reiterate what they would say. Gwen would be shouting up and down and saying, never take that ever, ever, ever. It's super horrible for you.
Have they used plant medicine in the third trimester?
A little bit, yeah. My ex-wife did use cannabis in the third trimester in extreme pain, and it was helpful. It did alleviate the problems that she was having. So
baby's okay, not autistic or ADHD.
Yeah,
I thought everybody has ADHD, Dr. T. Everyone that was born in between the late 70s and the 90s, I thought everybody got ADHD. It's just part of
Dr.
being
T,
born there.
we were all we ate organic food primarily, very little conventionally farmed food. We were very against putting any chemicals in our bodies that are made by big pharma, things of that nature. No Red 40, no stuff like that. So, and all my kids are perfect. My son might say he has autism as a joke, but it's a joke.
The only thing that made him is
Blame
the
the Blue
vaccine.
35 and the Fruit Loops.
Yeah, he's probably trying to give himself autism right now with as much Red 40 as he eats now.
Oh man, oh man, on that. We're going to roll into our next commercial and we are going to be right back.
Every legend has a humble beginning.
In world news, leaders are gathering today for the annual summit.
I want to tell you something, Che. The government is watching us through the television.
Oh, John.
Look, right there. They're trying to hack into my TV box.
We're still not able to hack into the TV box, sir.
Ha! But they can't. I've rebuilt the entire electronic system, and it sends and receives signals through quantum phase space. They'll never get in. Engage target.
In other news, local authorities are investigating a series of strange atmospheric phenomena reported by residents.
Ma'am, we're with the federal government. We need to ask you some questions.
John?
Is there a problem? We've been trying to penetrate your TV box for over 6 months. I told you they were trying to watch us through the TV, but you didn't believe me. We can't get in, and to be frank, we have no idea what you've created. Yeah, that's the point. It's called privacy. You know what the Fourth Amendment guarantees? All we know is that we can't get inside. We want to know if you can create one for us.
QUX. Even the government wants one.
Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com.
Introducing QUX Pay, or simply the Pay app.
Where you can pay like it's nobody's business.
Because it isn't. It's what everyone's been clamoring for. It's finally here.
Secure every payment. Your data stays private. QUX will never sell your data for profit, period. Pay friends, family, contacts instantly. No hidden fees. No limits. Spend on the move.
With this patented technology, you can use debit, credit, bank transfers, cash cards, and even crypto completely offline.
Amounts transferred through the Pay app reach their destination instantly. Transfers in a flash. As quick as sending a text. No more waiting around like crypto. Are you ready for the future of payments? The state of the art for money is finally here.
Data privacy and security protocols trusted by militaries and banks worldwide. QUX Pay, the Pay app.
Available as an app and point of sale system, personal and corporate accounts available. Go to QUXPay.com and start using the Pay app today.
And we are back, and we are going to roll right into Dr. Mark Scialdone out in the great green state of Vermont, over there in the Champlain region. He's over there playing with labs, beakers, lab coats, and of course, science. He's out there talking about plant science in the Great Lake Champlain region of Vermont. It is none other than Dr. Mark Scialdone.
Hey, thank you, Jason, and thank you to my other correspondents that I shared a stage with here, Dr. T and Jesse. It's always an honor to be here on Fridays with y'all. Today, my story comes from Tenet Boston, which I guess is the NBC affiliate. It's got the little peacock there. All right, so not ABC, which I guess is a good way to start the day. Okay. As pediatric cannabis hospitalizations increase in Massachusetts, company points to the hemp market. Well, of course it's the hemp market, right? So data from the Massachusetts Department of Health shows a surge in cases of children being hospitalized after ingesting cannabis, often accidentally. And INSA says, whatever INSA is, in an unregulated hemp market is the driving factor. Okay, an unregulated hemp market in Massachusetts is helping drive a surge in cannabis exposure in kids, according to INSA, a licensed cannabis operating company in the state. Oh, okay. The licensed cannabis company is calling out the hemp market for bringing in these products. Okay, so NBC 10 in Boston has obtained health data from the Massachusetts Department of Health that confirms the surge. In a 36-month period ending in 2023, cases in which children under the age of 13 were taken to the emergency room after ingesting cannabis were up 97% compared with the prior year. Typically, the ingestion was an accident. Often hallucinations that were severe hallucinations. Wow. Cool. So hemp stuff makes you hallucinate? Is that right?
I'm not buying that.
Well, there is a market for mushroom-containing products, so maybe there could have been like mushroom-containing products in some of those hemp-derived products because they're just not regulated and users don't know it, but when they take it, they really like it and they want to go back and buy more, Jason, right? So maybe, producers are intentionally adding some mushroom stuff in there. Who knows? They'll develop something that we'll call cannabis-induced psychosis, meaning that they actually have some sort of lapse of their connection with reality, said Dr. Scott Hadlin at Massachusetts General for Children. They'll hear things that aren't there and see things that aren't there. INSA's research reviewed by NBC 10 at Boston points to retail outlets from Boston to Springfield operating in the legal hemp market, deploying legally questionable tactics. In one Springfield example, INSA reports buying edible gummies advertised as containing 500 milligrams of THC per serving, which is almost 100 times more than the legal limit. Disturbingly, the product, which called Stoner Patch Dummies, I'm reading this for the first time and have to laugh, sorry. Packaging was indistinguishable from Sour Patch Gummy Kids or Sour Patch Gummies candy popular with young children. We did not create a legal market to be usurped by this gray market with untested, unregulated products that aren't child resistant and has packaging that appeals to kids, said Steve Riley, general counsel at INSA. Selling hemp in the United States, as defined by the 2018 Farm Bill, is safe, and that harmlessness means that officials rarely police its smoke shops and gas stations, for example. However, INSA maintains that the lack of enforcement has led to unscrupulous behavior that is competitively unfair to the legal cannabis market in Massachusetts and poses a risk to children. Riley believes that a fix in Congress on the 2018 Farm Bill is the most effective route to the solution, but a bill in the Massachusetts legislature has already passed that would help in the meantime. It's not the Senate's legislative agenda for the next session, which worries Senator John Keenan. Accidental ingestion of marijuana imposes serious risks to children, he said. In Springfield, they do not wait for federal or state legislation. In June, the city council unanimously passed an ordinance to more closely regulate the sale of hemp products. And it was the first municipality in the Commonwealth to take such an action. Well, again, we've discussed this 1,000 times on High at 9, right? It's the perfect storm. You have a market that basically, even though it's opened up and it's, pretty successful in its regulated market, you could buy stuff cheaper without age gating and probably get quicker and easier access to on the internet. They're all hemp derived. And I guess especially if you're a kid and you're under 18 and you don't have a fake ID to be able to get off buying something in a regulated market, maybe you have to resort to perhaps leaning on a sibling or something to order something on the internet. Who knows? But these products are out there. They're getting in the hands of children. They're in the hands of adults too, for Christ's sakes. So I think it's just interesting that, again, the noted effect here is hallucinations, but could that just be a new cannabis user that's super young, that's just unexperienced to the cannabis effects? So anyway, that's the story from here Friday afternoon. Hope you guys are going to have a great weekend and cannabis is part of your plans. I'd be interested in what my other correspondents have to say.
I'm confused by this hallucinogenic part. I don't buy it for a second. Okay. And yes, granted, Dr. Mark, you could be right. There could be a bad actor that put some DMT in their mixture, in their formula or whatnot, or maybe some mushrooms or whatnot. But I'm not really buying that either, especially if it's from a hemp company. I'm not buying it because there's plenty of other mushroom companies and everything that are selling these products in all the same places.
Just be a young kid who's never gotten high on edibles before. And now this is the first time they're high. And so they're, it just completely overwhelms them, right? So that becomes a psychedelic.
Just consider it a red flag whenever somebody uses the word psychosis or hallucination. I mean, the questions you have to ask, or dissociative. The question, they might just be talking about the high. I mean, ask them, is it permanent? Is it temporary? I mean, those are the questions. Did it cause harm to the child? Often the answer is no, it's not permanent. No, it didn't cause harm to the child. But they use these big words to scare people off. I think it's interesting that the regulated cannabis market is fighting with the hemp market rather than joining the hemp market. I think the hemp market, there are some good actors as well as bad actors in both markets. And when you're buying a Sour Patch gummy, it's probably a bad actor, right? Mm-hmm. So careful what you buy. Ask for the COA, validate the COA, or go to a source that are committed to acting well around it.
Mm-hmm. I'm still
Good
not.
advice.
Yeah. Go ahead.
None
Jesse.
of you guys have ever had any kind of psychedelic experience with cannabis, especially when you were first using it?
No,
I sure have.
No, not on weed. No.
Never.
I think it happens all the time, but Jesse, it doesn't make you. I mean, you're fine, right? It didn't ruin you to have that psychedelic experience. It might have been beneficial.
No. Right. I was just wondering because it wasn't the word hallucination that brought that up.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the article.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had. I wouldn't call it a hallucination because a hallucination literally means you see a tiger and there's not a tiger, or you see a demon and there's not a demon. That's a hallucination. But I've had psychedelic pattern moving, breathing sort of experiences with cannabis on really high doses when I was first introduced to cannabis.
Yeah, I think people who characterize cannabis experiences as psychedelic have never taken psychedelics.
Yeah. Exactly.
I wouldn't say it's extreme, like taking a ton of acid, but I have had effects like that. Have you not ever had that experience?
I mean, I could certainly feel like the onset of a really super potent ab to get to point of being like, whoa, I'm so glad I'm sitting in this nice soft chair and not behind the wheel of my car, It's and if someone tried to pass me a rig or a joint, I'd have to turn them down because my lungs just couldn't take it. So yes, I've been that way on cannabis, but just not psychedelic at all, right? Is that psychedelic?
I mean, I've had in a psychedelic what I would
so
call
much
it.
More.
I've had what I would call a psychedelic experience where the visuals were enough of a difference where things were sort of breathing and moving and
really
patterns were moving. Yeah, for sure. Without anything else, no alcohol involved, no mushrooms.
To like when you did do psychedelics, so that same type of
like almost like a microdose of mushrooms.
Yeah.
You know, when you microdose mushrooms, like, and you get right to the edge of like stuff starts to kind of breathe a little bit and it gets a little bit like I've had those type of experiences with cannabis. They were all when I first started.
It's time to eat another cap when you see that.
Right. Yeah. It was my first edible. Right. And that actually happened to me the first time I smoked weed. When I was 15 or whatever.
I'm still not buying this hallucinogenic thing. This is total. I think this is prohibitionist talk, and I think this is kind of what they're going to start to use to say why people shouldn't have access to cannabis. It's prohibitionist talk. Yeah. Well, no, just prohibitionist talk for cannabis. You know what I mean? Like psychedelics. Yeah, they're supposed to give you a psychedelic experience. That's the whole point why they're called psychedelics, Dr. Mark. You know what I mean? But cannabis is just a plant, and it's not intended to give you a psychedelic effect. Otherwise, you might as well just sit around and munch on some mushrooms, or you know what I'm saying? Or, take a dab of DMT or something if you want that type of effect. I just feel like anytime that I hear someone say that with cannabis gave them some type of psychedelic effect, I'm like, oh, this person's already out of their mind and they're already loopy and they already don't know what they're talking about.
Bro, I just said that.
Remember, mindset and setting contribute to the psychedelic experience.
I agree with that.
Much the substance that you're taking.
I totally agree with that 100%. And again, I'm going to double down on what I said again. Is I think anybody that's saying that they had a psychedelic experience off of cannabis is a little loopy and is just promoting fake news.
Well, what that is that's called gaslighting. When someone's had a real experience and they're telling you that they've had a real experience and they didn't eat acid or mushrooms before
at the same time, Jesse,
and they did have a psychedelic experience, and then you tell them that they're loopy. That's the literal meaning of gaslighting.
Jesse, I don't have to believe them, and they're whatever mental illness. I don't have to make my reality.
But you don't have to gaslight them either and tell them that their experience didn't happen.
No. Here's the thing.
Yeah, I do.
We create the situation for these guys.
What's that, Dr. T?
Have a psychedelic experience with cannabis. It's a good thing to have a psychedelic experience with cannabis, and if you create the right setting and prepare the individuals, we've done studies with this. We can get them to get a psychedelic experience with cannabis. I mean, we're intentionally trying to get them to have that experience. And I think it's a great way to have a therapeutic experience too. So nothing bad there. All good.
Okay. All right. Whatever. I've stated my piece. But nonetheless, on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial. We're going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. And in a GMP certified facility, so you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where am I even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Test it. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Oh, we are back. And you know what? We were just having a very funny religious conversation a little bit, you guys. And it just so happens that our next two stories, final stories of the day, have to deal with religion and cannabis. And so with all of that, oh man, this is going to get good. We're going to roll right in to Jesse Barney. He's the founder of Barney Design Co. and can help take your brand to the highest plateau. And even if you're cannabis a brand, he can probably even give you a psychedelic experience that's out of this world. That's right. It is none other than Jesse Barney.
Thank you for the introduction, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
My article comes out of Marijuana Moment this morning. And I had to do a deep dive in this because I am a Christian. I have been a Christian since I was about 20 years old, 17. And I've had a long and very interesting journey with Christianity, in that I was studying to be a pastor, and I went to be a missionary in Africa, lived there for 6 months, and got very involved in my church to a very high degree, went to Bible college, etc. So I have a background in studying these things, and this article forced me to kind of do a deep dive. So this will be a little longer than I would typically go, but I think it's worth it because this article was published in the Indiana Health Law Review, because it's talking about how the change in law affects Christians' perceptions of the plant medicine. And then it was also published in the Social Sciences Research Network, which is another journal. So there's some social sciences that are involved in this, and it's pretty interesting stuff. So I'm going to try to kind of give the lay of the land for people who don't know about Christianity. And for those who do, I'm going to try to bring up the problems and issues on many sides, because there's a huge debate underneath this topic. So here we go. The headline is this: Christians will be able to use medical marijuana after Trump inevitably reschedules it, former DOJ official says in a new religious analysis. This is by Kyle Yeager. A former U.S. Justice Department official argues that the use of medical marijuana by Christians may be biblically justified if cannabis is federally rescheduled, saying in a new paper that the federal government will inevitably enact the reform. But consumption of cannabis for recreational purposes would remain inconsistent with biblical principles even after rescheduling, he said. The paper in the journal Indiana Health Law Review, titled Christian Faith and Marijuana Use After Federal Rescheduling, offers an analysis of how a proposed rule to move cannabis from the Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act would comport with religious doctrine on the use of certain drugs. It states that after rescheduling and consistent with biblical principles, people will presumably be able to use it therapeutically, just as they use other intoxicants for their legitimate medicinal needs. Now, what this brings up is, in the Christian church, and it's really in all of it, whether it's Catholic or Protestant or very modern editions of Christianity, there's really three biblical verses that are interplaying here. The first one is Romans 13, which is kind of well known, and it says that let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. So in the Christian mindset, in the theology of Christianity, they have this view that whatever the law says is what God kind of wants you to do. There's a moral obligation to obey the law. And so that's very much the case in regard to cannabis. So Christians don't like cannabis still to this day because it's actually still federally illegal. So the churches actually still preach, because of this verse and because you should be a law-abiding citizen as a Christian, that's what they teach you, that you should submit yourself to the federal law and not consume cannabis of any kind, even if it's medical and even if your state says it's legal, because it contradicts the national law. So that's how they think about it. And then they pull this next part where even if it, as he said, even if it does get rescheduled and it becomes a medicine, it won't be something that Christians can use. I hate the word recreationally. I think that really ruins our thing. And I even don't like adult use. I think that cannabis 100% is a wellness product. It is about wellness. It is about health. We have an endocannabinoid system that is designed by God. And this is my personal thing. So I think that cannabis is actually something that's made by God. Genesis 1:29 says that let every seed-bearing plant be for your use for food. And that word food in the Hebrew means like medicine, life-giving sustenance. It's a really interesting word. So there's a lot at interplay here. But Christians take these two verses besides the Romans one. One is Galatians 5:19 through 20, where Paul lists a bunch of acts of the flesh or acts of sin, as he calls them. And in there, he uses this word pharmakeia, which is the Greek word that when he wrote it, the translation in almost every Bible is sorcery or magic. But in the Greek, the old Greek, that meant like sorcery by potion or by substance. And there were different, like the oracles of Delphi would inhale a vapor that came out of the mountain, and it was supposedly psychedelic of some kind, and then they would receive oracle divination from some spirits. And there was a lot of that in the Greek times. So there's this inclination that some intent of using substances to kind of touch the spirit world might be looked at as sorcery. But this word pharmakeia is really interesting, and it plays out clearly. It became pharmacy, and it does mean drugs in some way. And if you relate it to the ancient Greek, it does mean that. So there's only this verse and another one in Revelations 18 where there's this reference to pharmakeia as well, where it says, by your magic spell, referring to Babylon is the U. Babylon is this kind of idea of a spiritual principality or kingdom that's kind of over the earth. And it says, by Babylon's magic spell, all the nations were led astray. And that word magic spell is actually this word pharmakeia. So some sort of drug. And I tend to think that this is actually like a metaphor. By your magic spell. And I think the same thing as what Paul's referring to is this is like a magic, like a metaphor for doing something that is some sort of spell or some sort of deception. And it's really hard to understand what those are. So that's kind of the overall Christian thought and theology and where they're pulling it from. And back to the article, it says that's not necessarily the case, meaning that they might not be able to use it for medicinal or recreational use. A reclassification of marijuana to Schedule 3 would not necessarily federally legalize the plant. And this is where we've been talking a lot about what happens with Schedule 3, and this is actually a really great analyzation of what happens under Schedule 3. While other Schedule 3 drugs, such as Xanax, can be prescribed by doctors, the Food and Drug Administration would need to approve cannabis as a medicine in order for it to be prescribed. So just because it becomes Schedule 3 doesn't mean the FDA has approved anything. And there's a really interesting gray area there, and what happens once something does get approved really introduces some really big changes as to how the cannabis industry works and how we interface with cannabis as society. And it will really dictate a lot about how Christians think about this. So the general public probably does not realize that marijuana possession remains a federal crime, and even in states that have substantially decriminalized its manufacture, distribution, and use. The paper from Melvin Ote of Faulkner University says, for law-abiding persons, marijuana's status as a Schedule I controlled substance means it cannot be consumed medicinally or recreationally. However, there are strong indications that the federal authorities will eventually reschedule, and he uses the word, reschedule the hallucinogen. And I don't know why he calls it that, and he's a lawyer. So he's pulling this word from somewhere, and it's a legal word and some legal definition. And I wasn't able to actually extract where he's pulling that from, but he did pull it and use that word. And he's used it many times in other papers. I looked at other papers he's written on this same subject. So Ote, who served as a trial attorney in DOJ's Organized Crime and Racketeering section from 2000 to 2003 and the Organized Crime and Gang section from 2007 to 2014, wrote, he clarified that in his view, even after rescheduling, law-abiding people, meaning these Christians who look at Romans 13 as that law, I need to be law-abiding, will not be free to use the drug recreationally because it will remain a controlled substance under the Controlled Substances Act. Moreover, recreational use would be inconsistent with several biblical principles, it says. And that's those verses about pharmakeia that I brought up. If California's laws prescribing marijuana were once typical, then perhaps it logically follows that the state's deregulation was a harbinger of things to come, the former DOJ official said. He also said that classical economic theory lends to the idea that following legalization, there will tend to be lower prices and easier access, factors that ultimately beget increased consumption. Despite the study author's analysis, other research has shown that religious people are significantly less likely to support legalizing marijuana compared to those who identify as atheists and other religiously unaffiliated groups. And that is because of those verses that I brought up. As far as rescheduling is concerned, President Donald Trump endorses the reform on the campaign trail ahead of his second term, and he said that more recently that a decision on the proposal is imminent without giving clear indication of his current position. As Trump continues to weigh the rescheduling proposal, a Democratic Congresswoman said this month there's been more discussion amongst lawmakers about the cannabis reform recently, adding that she'll continue to push for other modest policy changes such as industry banking access. Okay, so the summary of this is if cannabis is rescheduled, there will be a change on the Christian side of their viewpoint of what cannabis is and whether or not it's able to be used at all. And what it would mean is that there would be a huge swath of people who would suddenly change their perspective and go, oh, we can use this for medicine because now the government has said that it's legal, which sort of separates it from this idea of pharmakeia, because they clearly, and there are some, I should have said this, but there are some Christian populations who won't use any Tylenol or any drug at all. They will literally say, I need to have faith in God, and I won't take any drug because they think of any drug, anything they put into their system that's not just food, they think of that as pharmakeia. So there's this spectrum from those people to people who are pretty liberal on this topic and say, well, when it's therapeutic or it's medicine, it's of God. And if it's approved by the law, then it's definitely of God. So there's this spectrum of ideas out there. And the majority of the Christian viewpoint, which is where our social constructs do come from a lot in this country. So it's going to shift dramatically when it comes to cannabis. And I think that's a great thing. It's something that I've been pushing for a long time. I personally do think, as I said, because of Genesis 1:29, where it's very clearly declared what cannabis is as a seed-bearing plant and that it's to be used for food. And if you eat it, you're getting cannabinoids, especially if you cook it. So there's an interesting theological topic there that I think Christians skip right over. It's mentioned in Leviticus. The word cannabism is actually in the oil that the high priest uses before going into the holiest of all. So that's an interesting thing, and that's just glazed over also by Christians. And then they jump ahead and they use these couple verses about pharmakeia, and they kind of spin the whole thing and say anything that's not approved by the government is evil. I just don't think that's the proper way of distilling this topic for Christians. And I hope that this does make a big change, because it will make a big change for our industry. And I'll toss it over to everybody else. Thanks for bearing with me on this long topic.
Well. Doctors, do you guys want to touch on this first?
Well, drop kick me, Jesus, through the goalposts of life. That's all I got to say is, yeah. There's a very common misconception. Look up the work of Sula Bennett, who basically made the connection that it's not calamus that they refer to in the King James Bible. It's cannabis, which, like you said, Jesse's that whole cannabosum thing. Yep. And I believe Jesus's anointing oil was hash oil. And I believe when you see that enlightenment of halo around him and the apostles, that's their high. There's a lot more in religion and the connection to cannabis and its magical properties and is, spelled out in one book, namely the Bible. And so I think you have to look beyond that. And ultimately, yes, I'm not, I don't want to slight religion. That's not what the story is about. But Christians, you're right. It's a big demographic. There's a lot of people who believe in the teachings and the followings of Jesus and all that stuff. But really, at the end of the day, Jesus' anointing oil was cannabis oil. So it's all good, Christians. Mm-hmm. Smoke up.
Dr. T, any thoughts on this, Dr. T?
Well, if you ask the Rastas, everybody who uses cannabis for recreational purposes are misunderstanding the plant, and that the purpose of the plant is for spiritual enlightenment, and that's just a slight shift in consciousness to seek spiritual enlightenment rather than blowing your brains out and being not connected. I think it's a simple shift. Mm-hmm. So it looks like the Rastas are going to be happy that the Christians are coming on to their side.
Interesting. Well, I happen to.
I mean,
go ahead.
Can I add one thing, Jason?
Go ahead, please.
I always said to people that were kind of like who were like my age and my time frame, like my previous generation, my parents, were church-going folks on both sides, my in-laws too, and kind of like what I found by following the Grateful Dead, like I would have psychedelic experiences, consuming cannabis and psychedelics in those groups. And that kind of like took the place for me anyway, Jesse, of what the religious experience was, like some kind of communal thing that moved you beyond just being a human being. And now you're connected with all these humans. So if that was, going to a Dead show and having a good time and making that kind of connection, it was, right? It's just a different, set of rules. Well, no rules at all on a Dead tour. But yeah, so I'm not saying that it's not important or anything. All I'm saying is that what moves people spiritually is not necessarily just all based on organized religion, right?
No, I'm clearly an example of that. I don't go to church. I haven't been a part of a church for a very long time. I still hold to the very basic tenets of Christianity and the history that comes from Judeo-Christian history and thought and values. I think that there's incredibly important stuff that we shouldn't throw away. That doesn't mean that the church is good. And the church meaning, there's two meanings of the church. The one is the spiritual church of people who actually believe in good things and follow a right, good way. And then the church meaning the 501c3 corporation that's approved by the government that's used as a tool to actually control people. Those are two different things.
See, to me, church was being inside Birdland, listening to Charlie Parker and John Coltrane.
That's the first one. That's the first one
to me.
Right. That's the first one.
That's church. It doesn't have to be a building. It's a place. It's kind of like a connection with fellow human beings where people are aligned for real reasons of faith, right?
Which is all of us. Yes, exactly. You're right on the money. And that's the point is that we're all connected. There's a butterfly effect and that if you breathe, it affects the entire universe. And I really believe that. And I think that's actually fundamentally in physics, it's true. So when you see those things line up, that there's like a spiritual analogy and there's a physical truth, that's when you kind of know, okay, yeah, that's true, right? So when you're having that experience in Birdland, or you're at a dead show and you're opened up to all these amazing things, and you see the connection of everything, and the music like shows you, you're having a church experience. That I agree with that 100%. Versus the 501c3 corporation that's used to control people's thought. Okay, so that's a different meaning for church, and unfortunately, those two things get crossed in the Christian thought, and I wish that they would uncross them, because I think there's huge value in that. But this is part of the conversation. I mean, this is a societal conversation, and this is part of why cannabis is so important. It's one of the things of why it's so important to me, is because I think it really does impact your theology. When you look at plant medicine correctly, and you believe as a Christian that it's made by God for you to use for certain reasons, that totally shifts your worldview and how you look at things. And I'm really excited for that shift in a bigger population of Christians. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. So, the one verse, as you said, that generally gets mentioned quite often, Jesse, Genesis 1:29. And it says, then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding in it. It shall be food for you, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life. I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And so I'm with you. There's a lot of Christians in organized religion that do. I mean, even when I was a kid and I went to youth group, they said, you don't smoke cannabis because they say to obey the laws of the land. Well, the laws of the land started changing back in 1996 with medical cannabis in California. And so we are obeying the laws of the land. And I understand that people may want to say, oh, it's still federally illegal. But, the reality is, there's not a federal police state. There's a state police state, and overall. So abiding by the laws of the land is abiding by the laws within your state, as far as I'm concerned. And once there is a clarification, as far as that, but at the same time, in a federal court, you operate under federal jurisdiction, regardless of what state you're in. So I can understand how they kind of get to that. But at the same time, if you're not trafficking cannabis and you're just using it and consuming it, you're not going to be subject to that federal law. So therefore, you should follow the state law in how I view this. Not to mention, at the same time too, God's law is far superior to any man-made law overall, and it is a man-made law that made cannabis illegal in the first place. And the fact that Jesus references, or God references this in the first book of Genesis, in the very first chapter of when everything was created, is just speaks volumes. And I'll tell people, maybe, instead of living in the New Testament so much, maybe you need to go back and revert a little bit to the Old Testament to really to get your foundation footed in God and in Jesus, and how you want to how you want to choose to perceive things overall. But the reality of it is that cannabis is not a man-made creation. It is a plant in which God created and put here on this earth for us to utilize. Now,
Jason,
mushrooms.
You just walked this to an interesting point. I want to jump in here.
Go ahead.
When Romans 13 was written, and it says that Christians should submit themselves to authority, because authorities are created by God.
Hold on.
There's
you
a very
said
interesting thing that happens.
Romans 13 what, Jesse?
It's 13:1.
Okay.
So there's a very interesting thing that happens in political authority and the meaning of that, and you just started to infer to it is that in America, the highest, according to the Constitution and the way that our laws are actually built, the highest authority in the land is an individual in his private property.
Yes.
So there is no federal government and there is no state government and there is no city government that trumps you on your own private property. You're not supposed to be subject to, that's why you're not supposed to be subject to search and seizure. That's why you have the freedom of speech. That's why you have the freedom to keep and bear arms. All of these things coalesce under this idea that a person in his private property is the highest authority in the land, and you're supposed to be able to decide this. Now, what's interesting is, as you just brought up, it actually is Christians' duty in America, and nobody talks about this, and this is not a theological understanding that is common. I've been called a heretic for holding this position, but Christians should stand up to the laws of the land because they actually do have the highest authority under the Constitution to stand up and say, no, this is against the law of God. I don't believe in this, and therefore I'm going to stand up. And it's actually their duty as Christians to do so under the Constitution. And unfortunately, we live in a society that does not do that. They do the opposite. They don't. In my perspective, they're not actually not heeding Romans 13. They're actually bowing to a different authority rather than standing up for the authority that's God-given and declared in the Constitution.
Well, Jesse, to your point, Romans 13:1 says, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except for God, and those which exist are established by God. And then 2 says, therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. And do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise for the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil.
Right. So that was written at a time when kings and emperors were the way that it was. And there was a new form of government, which was the Roman form of government, but it was still very, very tyrannical. And you were a subject of Rome, and it was an empire. So as a subject of Rome, he was telling people, because there was a lot of people wanting to rebel against the government and cause revolutionary things to happen. And he was telling people, don't do that. Actually submit to the authority and don't cause a problem for yourself, because this tyrannical government is just going to come in and cut you down by the sword. And that's not a Christian way of acting. Now, that gets flipped on. That's my point here. We don't live in a government that's like that. We live in a government where the law is very different. You are the king. Every person is a king and a queen, especially in their own private property. That is the way the Constitution is constructed, and everything else goes under that. The next highest law in the land is the local government, and the law below that is the state government. And it's supposed to be that the law at the very bottom that has the least power is the federal law. But we've totally flipped that in our actions. But our law still actually declares it to be the case. And it's just a very interesting topic, and I do wish that Christians understood this more and that they acted more like Christians and stood in the power of their citizenship. We've spent a long time on this, but it is an interesting topic. There's a lot to it. And even if you're not a Christian, this matters because there's a lot of people around you who are Christians, and their viewpoints shape the society that you live in. And so understanding this can help you interact with them and reshape their viewpoints, because their viewpoints aren't necessarily correct.
And Jesse, I imagine we're going to end up doing some type of long form video on this whole topic.
I've wanted to do a High at 9 special for this for a long time because it's super relevant. But yeah, we do need to do it, and this is sort of like a teaser for it.
All right. Well, on that, I have one final religious story for you guys. Doctors, do you have anything else you want to throw in on this topic before I move on? All right. Seeing no. Okay. Well, you guys, Utah. Shout out to the Mormons because Utah sanctuaries are using vapes, psychedelic mushrooms, and cannabis. And they're now suing over raids, you guys. That's right. Judges have sided with faith groups with similar practices in the state, but a recent flavored vape ban may add another layer to the legal fight. Months after Utah's ban on flavored vapes, Black House, a former Sugar House vape shop, became a sanctuary and a safe haven for those searching to get flavored cartridges for spiritual and religious practices, you guys. The electronic cigarettes joined other sacraments that have been at the center of religious legal challenges in the state, like psychedelic mushrooms and cannabis. But after Utah law enforcement agencies raided the Sugar House location, as well as the Salt City Sanctuary in South Salt Lake in August, all of these sacraments have been put into legal question, with the Sugar Leaf Church, the institution overseeing both sanctuaries, initiating a lawsuit to keep them. In a quote, "Officers have arrived using riot gear, AR-15s, pry bars, and battering rams, forcibly entered both sanctuaries and immediately began disabling the sanctuary systems and surveillance cameras with a crowbar," the church said in a lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Salt Lake City in August. During the raids, officers confiscated cannabis and psilocybin products, which the church called sacramental property, as well as thousands of flavored vape cartridges, blank checkbooks, waivers, clergy rosters, cash donations, tablets, and membership records. The church is asking a judge to order law enforcement to stop interfering with members' free exercise of religion and to award compensatory damages. The institution is also asking the South Salt Lake Police Department and the Utah State Bureau of Investigation to undergo mandatory religious sensitivity training and for the immediate return of property. At Salt Lake City Sanctuary, the agent seized 4.24 kilograms of packaged marijuana flower, over a kilogram of fresh flower marijuana, 956 1-gram pre-rolled marijuana joints, 8 display jars of marijuana flower, 152.5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, mushroom gummies and sample packs, numerous edibles with THC, and rolling papers, according to a motion to dismiss filed by the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office. At Black House, officers confiscated significant quantities of raw marijuana, psilocybin mushrooms, THC vapes, cookies, gummies, candies, syrups, oils, and similar products, psilocybin, cookies, gummies, and similar products, and over 3,000 flavored vape cartridges and order receipts, the District Attorney's Office said in its motion. Joshua Roberts, a church reverend who was also arrested and booked into Salt Lake City County Jail during the Salt City Sanctuary raid. He faces multiple charges in the 3rd District Court, including possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, a 3rd-degree felony, and the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit this month and declined to comment because the litigation is ongoing. The church, though, the Sugar Leaf Church, is a non-denominational church with branches in 9 states and Mexico that uses psychoactive substances for sacraments, including cannabis and psilocybin mushrooms. Members have to sign an agreement committing to following the church's code of conduct, and in a quote they say, "These are not casual practices," the church wrote in its own lawsuit. "They are intentional, structured, and rooted in decades of education, experience, and legal precedent." The church cited protections under the U.S. Constitution and federal law that guards religious freedom in the filing, and it also mentioned a federal judge's recent decision siding with a small Provo-based faith group that uses psilocybin mushrooms as part of its practice and ordering Utah County to temporarily stop criminal proceedings against the organization and its founder. The Provo case partially hinged on a 2024 state law that made it easier to sue government entities if they restrict a person's right to exercise their religion, and the sugar leaf raids came a day after that decision. The church said, according to a sanctuary volunteer's statements, officers refused to read waivers, doctrinal statements, and clergy notices, and they also mocked the religious affiliation. In a quote, one officer openly referred to the religious operation as a loophole and laughed when we corrected. He also said, look how stupid they are. They wrote it all down. The church's lawsuit says, however, prosecutors argue that Utah sites are best defined as shops and not churches, and since the Department of Commerce records indicate that multiple business entities were operating at the same location as Black House Sanctuary, including Black House Vapor Company, LLC, that fact, the prosecutors wrote, rebuts the claims that the activities at the Sugar House location were solely religious. The district attorney's office also pointed out that plaintiffs assert religious use of marijuana and psilocybin. They do not assert any religious belief or practice related to flavored vape cartridges. Wow. Utah. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. And Dr. T, I already know where you're going to go on this one first, because I'm gonna agree with you on this one, because I do find it slightly appalling that they in previous judgments they have sided with allowing this as a religious sacrament and usage, but yet the U.S. government will not acknowledge the Rastafarian Church, who has fought this many times, and they have actually deemed Rastafarian religion as not a religion in the United States, so therefore it is not subject to the exclusion for cannabis sacrament under the Rastafarian religion, and so but I'll let you kind of opine more on that. But I already know where you're going to go with that one.
No, you did a beautiful job. And Babylon also didn't recognize Black people as complete people either. So, we move on and we go to our community for support.
Yes, indeed. Any thoughts?
This is sort of what I was referring to. I use the word sort of very specifically. It's sort of what I was referring to. This is a group of people using the concept that I was talking about, where Christians should stand up and say that using plant medicine is a God-given right. They're using that concept, but they're using it, to me, what looks like an improper execution. Flavored vape pens are not sacrament. I don't see where that comes from or how that's developed, other than to just state that it is. I believe that this is the case. Well, I can say I believe anything's the case, and to say that it's sacrament, and that just goes down you could take that to a really dark place. Like, you could say that I believe that children's blood is a religious sacrament. Like, that's how far you can go with that kind of stupidity. That's not what I was talking about. And it's also interesting, the church that is the quote unquote church that is doing this lawsuit is run by Heidi Grossman Lepp. You know who that is?
I do.
Eddie Lepp's ex-wife.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
She runs that operation. I'm sure there's some people in the chat, and there's a lot of people that know her and know more about what she's about.
I knew Eddie. I knew Eddie Lepp for years, and have helped him in a few of his federal cases over the years.
Well, he was remarried to Sandra.
Let me finish what I'm saying. Yeah. Because And I remember them coming into the shop and saying how they were going to argue the religious sacrament in a federal trial. And I told them, I said that's ridiculous, bro. You guys are gonna lose on the basis of that argument, because they've already ruled against the Rastafarian churches in regards on that matter. I said, so that doesn't make any sense to do this. They're like, oh, we're gonna do it, and there's a case precedent, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it anyway. And they did it, and they got it handed to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I tried to tell them not to do it.
It didn't work in California.
Yeah, it did not, exactly.
Which is why she moved to Utah. Mm-hmm. Well, and there's precedent for this in Utah. In Utah, yes, allowed some pretty exceptional things. And the reason is because the Mormons already are an exceptional religious organization. So they kind of have to allow these other more exceptional and fringe religious organizations to exist, because they can't infringe on their own religious organization that's so dominant in that area.
I just never realized that flavored vape carts were a religion. I never did. You know, shame on me.
Utah, and that's
shame on me. Shame on me. Shame on me, you guys. Any thoughts on this, Dr. Mark? You seem like you're speechless on this one.
Yeah, that's the last two articles.
I mean, just the whole flavored vape cart thing is just like more of like a play on like the whole nicotine thing, right? More than cannabis, right?
Well, these are cannabis flavored vapes that they're defending.
Yeah, but
which is weird.
Creates an outlet for vanilla distillate, which is just not a high value cannabis product. And, it's just the wrong end of the market to start people using cannabis. But that's just what I take from it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, man, you have any final thoughts on this, Dr. T, before we move on?
I'm good.
All right. So, all right. Well, fair enough. Well, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And Cloud Media partners Elias and Kai are somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.